Hi, this is Ollie at Oxford Online English. Welcome to the lesson. In this class, you're going to learn about how to write an answer for Task 1 of the General IELTS exam. Now, Task 1 of General IELTS is generally writing a letter. I think it's probably the easiest IELTS writing task. It's certainly the one which students have the fewest problems with. However, you still need to prepare for it and practice for it. And even if it's easy, that just means it's a chance for you to get a really good score and perhaps pull up your score if you find the essay more difficult, which many IELTS students do. You've got a chance to boost your score by writing a really good Task 1 answer. So let's look. In this lesson, I'm going to write an answer to a Task 1 question in real time. I'm going to do everything like in the exam. You can see how I write it. And I'm also going to talk to you at the same time so you can see what I'm thinking about and see what you should be thinking about when you answer Task 1 IELTS questions. Okay, so I'm going to do this with a timer, with a time limit like in the exam. I've got my timer here, 20 minutes. Let's start. So let's read the question. A close friend is coming to visit you. He or she has asked you for advice for things to do in your hometown and the surrounding area. Write a letter to your friend. In your letter, ask for more details about your friend's plans. Suggest some places to visit and things to do in your hometown. And tell your friend about food or drink he or she should try during his or her stay. Alright, everything below that you do not need to read. All of this stuff is the same for every Task 1 question, so we don't need to read it. Let's start. First, before you write anything, you should make a basic plan in your head. Now, all Task 1 questions are the same. They all have these 3 bullet points. This, I think, makes planning quite easy because you can write 3 paragraphs, 1 paragraph for each bullet point, and then maybe you have some basic stuff at the beginning or the end to say hello or a basic introduction. But basically, your plan should be 3 paragraphs. There are two things you should think about here before you start writing. One is you need to write an equal amount for each paragraph and for each bullet point. It's important that your answer is balanced and that you cover all of the points equally. So think about that as you plan or as you write. The second thing is that it's important to write your letter in the correct tone. So think about the situation. What I mean by tone is, should your letter be formal or informal? Should it be more professional or more conversational? This matters. In other IELTS writing tasks, things like tone and formality aren't really directly assessed. But in Task 1 of the General IELTS writing exam, tone matters. It counts for your score. And it's a very common mistake. Probably the most common mistake I see in Task 1 is students using language which is way too formal. Think about this task, for example. It's a letter to a friend who's coming to visit you that suggests that you should use a more informal and conversational tone. Okay, I should shut up and start writing, because otherwise I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to not use bold text so you can see the difference. Okay, shut up, Ollie. Right. Okay, so let's start with just a sort of basic introduction, saying hello kind of thing. Okay, now one thing, if you're writing for Task 1 in the General IELTS exam, and especially if it's something more informal like this, where you're writing to a friend, you do have to make an effort to use a variety of vocabulary and grammar. Usually, I think students focus a little bit too much on trying to use lots of academic vocabulary or trying to use lots of very complex grammar. And actually, for most IELTS tasks, I don't think you need to, because, for example, in the essay, the tasks themselves are complex enough. If you write a good answer with good ideas, you will automatically use a good range of vocabulary and grammar. But for a letter like this, where it's more informal, it would be easy to write something that's quite simple, that doesn't use such a good range of vocabulary and grammar. So that's something to think about. And words like, I don't know, show you around, which is a more conversational phrasal verb, that's the kind of thing that would that can help you here and boost your vocabulary score. Okay, so I need to ask for more details about my friend's plans. So I need to think of 2 questions. Let's start with this. Then what else? I need to ask about one more thing. How about this? I hope my keyboard isn't too annoying. I have a mechanical keyboard which is noisy. Alright, I need a little bit more because my paragraphs, remember, my paragraphs need to be balanced. I can't stop there. Let's... Okay. I think that's probably enough for one bullet point, for one paragraph. So I think this looks good because you've got things like also or by the way, so those are good. That's good use of linking words and connecting ideas together. Also, again, thinking about vocabulary in particular, using something like this, crash on my sofa. Crash is a more idiomatic or slangy word meaning to stay with a friend at their house overnight. And something like that is a way to use less common vocabulary while still writing in an informal and conversational tone. Okay, now I need to suggest some places to visit and things to do in my hometown. So I live in Athens, so I'll talk about that. Okay. One thing I'm going to have to be careful of as well is just to make sure I don't start too many sentences with you should or you can. It would be very easy to do that in a letter like this where you're giving advice. You could have a lot of sentences. You should do this, you should do that, you could do this. So I need to be careful of that and make sure I don't overuse the same structure too many times. Alright, again, I need to focus on writing so I don't run out of time. Okay, what else can I talk about? The Acropolis, obviously, in Athens is a very famous site. Personally, if I was actually writing to a friend, I wouldn't recommend going to the Acropolis. Everyone's kind of underwhelmed when they go there. But whatever, this is for IELTS, so it doesn't need to be true. The original Olympic Stadium, it's called the original Olympic Stadium. That is quite good, actually. That's worth going to. And it's called the Panathinaik Stadium. That's its name, but I'm not confident of spelling that correctly without looking it up. So I'm just going to say Olympic Stadium. Okay, right. What else? I need a bit more. No, don't say you. I need variety. Oh, yeah. Okay. I feel like no. Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. This should have an accent on the E, cafes, but I'm not going to do that because my video recording software is in the way of my my word menu, so I'm just going to leave that. Okay, so this, I think, you've got places to visit and things to do, so we've covered all of the points in the task. That's good. Again, I'm focusing more here on vocabulary and just trying to use a range of stuff because, like I said, it would be very easy to complete this task using very simple language. But we've got some good things in here like dotted around, wander around, set aside, main sites. That's a good one for vocabulary. In terms of grammar, I've got pretty good variety because I've got a shorter sentence and then a longer, more complex sentence here in the middle, which has different parts, and then another short sentence at the end. So that's a good mix. I do feel like, okay, you've got you should, you can. So despite the fact that I mentioned it and I said I was going to be careful of it, I've still fallen into that trap. But that's easy to fix. That's easy to fix. Okay. Right, that's good. So now I need the final main paragraph. I need to tell my friend about food or drink. So that's pretty easy. Greek food is good. Okay. The problem again, there's going to be, if I'm thinking of things to recommend, a lot of the words are Greek and I'm not sure how to spell a lot of those words in English. I'm not 100% sure because they're Greek words and my Greek spelling is awful. So, well, seafood, that's a possibility. Okay, again, I'm starting a sentence, you should, or I'm starting a clause with you should, and okay, let's change that. So moussaka, 2 S's, 1 K, that looks right. What other classic dishes can I spell? It's not a question of which classic dishes do I like, it's which can I spell. Juvetsi. I think it's spelled like that, pretty sure. If you're wondering what these are, moussaka is quite famous. It's something like a lasagna, but very heavy with grilled vegetables and meat. It's very nice. And juvetsi is like a beef stew with something like pasta. It's not exactly pasta, it's similar to pasta. Let's say that. It's good. It's very tasty. Okay, so that's food. I also need to talk about drink to cover the task. So what do you think of when you think of Greece? Wine, I guess. Let's talk about wine. I don't really drink much wine, but again, it's IELTS. It doesn't have to be real. Okay. Okay, that's good, I think. Let's do a word count check. So not counting the Dear Andrew, that's 160, so that's pretty good. Obviously, you need to write at least 150 words, as it says. There's no maximum, but you don't want to write more than about 200 because then you're wasting time that you could be spending on task 2. And I'm sure, as you know, you need all the time you can get for task 2. So if you can finish task 1 quickly, that's a real bonus. Don't try to write too much. Okay. So now I need some kind of finishing line. Then just put my name. Okay. So how am I doing for time? Wow, okay. In other videos where I've tried to do this, it's been very tight for time, but here I actually have quite a lot of time left. So we can look through it and just maybe see if we can improve the grammar or the vocabulary anywhere. Now, we've been thinking about grammar and vocabulary as we've been writing this, and I've shown you a few things already. And I think in this last paragraph also, I was choosing my words carefully, let's say that, and making sure that I use a good range of stuff. So, yeah, something like this. It would be easy to say they're generally pretty cheap. If you use a word like affordable, that fits the tone of this letter. It's not too formal or too academic for a letter to a friend, but it's also a less common word than cheap. So that's a good fit. Also remember that vocabulary is not just about words. It's also about using collocations and combinations. So something like classic dishes. The examiner will notice things like this. Tasty wines. Seems simple, but it counts. Yeah, okay. In terms of grammar, so here in this paragraph again, I've got a short sentence at the beginning, second short sentence, then I've got this longer, more complex sentence in the middle, and then again a different kind of structure at the end. I started this sentence with "you can," but I don't think that's a problem. I've got one, two, three, three sentences starting "you can" or "you should." That's okay. That's not too many. Not a problem at all. So I'm looking through this, but I think this is pretty much good to go. I'll double check the word count. 171 words, that's really good length. That's what you should be aiming for in task 1. And I think we're finished there. So let's just review the most important points for task 1. Number 1, decide the tone that you're going to write in. Are you writing something formal? Are you writing something informal? Think about that before you start writing and make sure your tone is consistent from the beginning to the end. Don't mix very formal and informal language in your answer, because that will have quite a large effect on your score. Number 2, plan your paragraphs. Have one paragraph for each bullet point and make sure that your paragraphs are more or less equal in length. It's a problem if you have one paragraph which is much, much longer than the others. Number 3, think about vocabulary and grammar as you write, ideally. Think about using a range of different words. Try to use a range of different sentences. Mix longer and shorter sentences to get some variety. And just make sure that you're not using the same words or the same structures again and again. And in that way, it should be possible, even if your English is, say, intermediate or higher intermediate, meaning band 6 or band 7 level, it should be possible to get a very good score for task 1. It should be very realistic to get a score of 7.5 or 8, I think, if you can do everything we talked about here. All right, so let's finish there. You can see the full text of this model answer on our website, oxfordonlineenglish.com. There is a link in the video description if you're watching on YouTube. But that's all, so thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.